What's up guys, and welcome back to the final installment of the series chronicling Lack Attack's sweep of the Zelda leaderboards. In the previous episodes, we covered a lot of tricks and glitches, as well as the 80%, swordless, and 100% no-up A categories, so be sure to check those out if you need a refresher, or if it's your first time viewing the series. But in today's video, we will be looking at all the remaining categories, putting them on a timeline, and going in depth with Lack's favorite category, Second Quest, to bring this series to a close. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The Legend of Zelda has a lot of categories on the leaderboard, with two essential splits occurring. The first is between the first quest and second quest, and the second is between categories that allow up A and those that don't. As you can see, Second Quest has a lot of categories the first playthrough of the game has, with low percent, swordless, 100%, and any percent all being present in both. The game further divides into categories that ban the up plus A warp, meaning that the route for those categories will differ from the ones that allow the warp. In addition to those categories front and center on the leaderboard, there are also two more we need to consider, the extreme rules categories for Second Quest and First Quest. There is a third missed category, but since it requires a Famicom disc system to play, Lack didn't include it in his sweep. So for you purists out there, just hold your horses and enjoy the video. The extreme rules category is the big brother of the swordless category for difficulty. If that big brother was on steroids and took his game difficulty lessons from the Ninja Gaiden trilogy, not only are you restricted from the use of swords, but you can't kill any overworld enemies, pick up any hearts or potions, and you need to kill every boss in addition to visiting every dungeon room along with a litany of other restrictions. This is the Dark Souls of Zelda categories, and there are two versions of it. Like swordless, the route for this record revolves around getting non-sword damage sources early, such as bombs and the magic wand. The first quest, Extreme Rules, is Lack's longest standing record on this sweep, as he pioneered the category, posting times of 1:38:05, 1:30:39, and a 1:25:24 back in September of 2015, which is where the record stands today. The second quest version of Extreme Rules follows much of the same formula. Find non-sword damage sources and complete the difficult requirements and get to Ganon. Lack took this category 4 years ago with a time of 2:32:20. But he had some competition with a veteran of Zelda speedrunning, Eunos. Eunos came in with a 2:02:53 in this category, a full 31 minutes ahead of Lack. It wouldn't be until a year later that Lack would come back to this category, but in October of 2017, due to optimizations and new strats, he brought the record down to a 1:40:59, almost 22 minutes ahead of Eunos and nearly an hour ahead of his previous time. From the end of 2017 to the end of 2018, Lack would take 4 more records, the first 3 of them being subcategories under Second Quest, and the last being 100% at the very end of 2018. The day after taking the Second Quest Extreme Rules record, Lack started doing runs in the Second Quest low percent category. This category is similar to Swordless and Extreme Rules, as it limits what you're allowed to pick up. Instead of banning certain items, it allows you to use almost everything in its base form, but doesn't allow you picking up any upgrades along the way. So unlike Swordless, where you can grab the bomb upgrade early to make life easier, you're stuck with the base limit of 8. Lack previously ran this category back in 2016 and posted a time of 1:16:43. But like all speedruns, things change. New strats and optimizations are found, and other runners get interested in categories. Eunos posted a 1:09:35 a month after Lack's 1:16 using a different route than what Lack used, and then in early 2017 he lowered his time even further to a 50:11 using yet another different route. Lack would need to conquer this time if he wanted the record back, and in late 2017, he took Second Quest low percent with a time of 48:02, using, you guessed it, another new route. The other Second Quest records Lack got came in mid and late 2018, with Second Quest No Up A and Second Quest Swordless coming in May and December 2018 respectively. From there, he grabbed the First Quest 100% category on December 30th, 2018 to end out the year with a time of 34:51. And since we've covered variants of these categories in previous videos, I won't be going into detail with them here. Before 2019, Lack managed to take and hold 6 of the 13 records he was after, which left 7 to gather in 2019. And what a busy time this year would turn out to be for him. In March 2019, he started doing runs with the any percent no up A category, the most popular category on the leaderboard with over 250 posted times. He first posted a time in this category back in 2014 with a 30:41. Since then, he ran attempts of any percent no up A and posted a lot of good times, breaking the sub 30 barrier in 2015 with a 29:56 and eventually getting a 28:30 on December 30th, 2017, which he would then lower 2 more times in 2018 until he landed on 28:17 in March of 2019, which is where the record currently stands. Lack came out of the gate in 2019, collecting Second Quest 100% in April with a 42:11, and then in May, with 5 records left to collect, he went on a rampage. On May 7th, he took 100% No Up A, which we covered in the first video with a 35:24. Then on May 12th, he took Swordless with the 32:26 that we looked at in the last video. The low percent record would come just 2 days later on May 14th with a 31:31, beating Eunos' time by just 1 second and getting Lack world record with an 11-second PB. You're probably wondering why we haven't dove into any of the Second Quest categories, and there are 3 reasons for that. The first is because we looked at a lot of the subcategories such as Swordless and 100%, so they were partially covered even though the routes are different for Second Quest than in First Quest. The second is because the Second Quest run comes very late in the leaderboard sweep, and third is because it's Lack's favorite category, so what better run to end on? So without further ado, let's have a look at Second Quest and how Lack took the record in it to finish the sweep. Second Quest opens up after you beat the game normally or input the name Zelda on the input screen to start it immediately. The dungeon locations have changed on the overworld, and the layout and difficulty of the dungeons have changed as well, making combat more intense and the pathway through the dungeons more challenging. Prior to 2017, this category wasn't routed, or even ran by anyone. That is, until Eunos came along and put together a route. He posted the first run in the category with a 33:16, and using a variation of this route that switches the order you do dungeons 1 and 2 in, Lack would post a time of 33:04 as his first submitted run on October 15th, 2017. After this initial run, Lack left the category for a bit, and a new route was developed by Eunos that used early game strats found in a task by Baxter and Morrison, as well as the Rook Hoarder route. Using this new route made by Eunos, another runner named Khananphone would post a time of 32:50 on June 2nd, 2018. Lack would come back to this category in December of 2018, and his first submitted time with the new route was a 32:47, beating Khananphone's record by just 3 seconds. But Khananphone would come back with the 32:23 just 2 months later, and this would ultimately be the time Lack needed to conquer. So let's have a look at the specific challenges this category offers. While in the first dungeon, you're looking for 2 things to happen. You need to gather 10 rupees and have at least 2 bombs in your inventory before you leave, which relies on some random drops paying off within the first 2 minutes of the run. Once you've obtained the rupees and bombs, you'll want to make your way to our old friend, the money-making game. The reason we're going here is because Eunos discovered a manipulation for the money-making game where you can always get the plus 50 rupees and never worry about taking a loss. Since we already covered the manipulation for the money-making game in a previous video, we won't be going over it here. From here, you'll want to make your way to level 2. This is a combat-heavy dungeon with a lot of reset points, as it contains our old friend the Manhandler from the 100% No Up A category, and a Gleeok is the final boss of the dungeon. From here you need to make your way to Dungeon 6, but only to pick up the ladder so that we can have access to the 8th dungeon, which has more challenges that add to the difficulty of the run. The first room you enter in Dungeon 8 contains a bunch of red bubbles. If you're hit by one of them, they will take your sword unless you can perform one of 4 actions. Get hit by a blue bubble, use a potion, grab the Triforce, or use a fairy fountain. The last 3 options would cost so much time that resetting would make more sense. And the first option of touching a blue bubble costs 15 seconds on its own, which doesn't outright kill a run, but is significant enough that it makes chances of PB very small. Lack got through this room without touching a red bubble, but he's not out of danger in this dungeon just yet. Dungeon 8 in second quest contains Dodongo fights, and you have to fight 3 of them at once when you encounter them in this dungeon. There are 4 rooms with Dodongo fights in total in Dungeon 8, but on this route you only encounter 1 set of them. The issue of the fight is that they move randomly, so if they move away from your bomb placements, there's a chance you run out of bombs and the run will die. In Lack's fight, he has 2 Dodongos line up perfectly to kill them both with the same bomb, and the third also cooperates nicely with him. He entered the room with 5 bombs and left with 8, meaning he was incredibly fortunate on the drops that Dodongos gave him, which will pay off huge in the next dungeon. After clearing Dungeon 8, you'll want to go into Dungeon 4, and just like the other difficult dungeons in second quest, you have some heavy combat rooms to deal with and only 6 hearts, which makes dying a possibility in this section as well due to the difficulty. Part of the problem comes from multiple red bubble encounters. Avoiding them to keep your sword is essential, but there is a strat that can get a clock to drop in 3 particular rooms. A clock is an item that freezes all enemies and makes you invincible. By keeping track of global drop rates on the item drop table, you can get the clock to drop in these rooms to reduce the difficulty of the rooms and preserve your run into the late game. After the 4th dungeon, Lack made his way to Dungeon 5 in order to get the bow and another piece of the Triforce. Once you get the bow, you can use up plus A on the second controller to warp to the start of the dungeon, but there is a catch. Using up plus A here drops you to 3 hearts, so while it does save time by not having to backtrack your way out, you're left vulnerable to the combat encounters in this dungeon left to come. Moving through the combat sections here, Lack avoids the Wizrobes and kills the Manhandler in 2 bombs, but he runs into a huge amount of trouble when fighting the Gleeok, as he has 0 bombs left. He needs bombs for the next dungeon, and if he doesn't get one to drop before getting to the large Wizrobe room in Dungeon 6, the run will die. Fortunately, after performing the Rook Hoarder glitch first try, which involves using the raft and recorder warp at the same time and warps you to a screen northwest of where the warp normally takes you, Lack arrives at the 6th dungeon. Dungeon 6 is pretty straightforward, but it does have some tense moments. Lack takes a heart of damage while doing the Gleeok fight, and takes another half heart to a Keese just before Goma. With 1.5 hearts, he can afford 3 hits during the Goma fight from the many projectiles being shot at him.
Well, I'm glad I ran into that guy, because now we have 1.5 hearts and could die here.
No!
No, no, no! Okay. Alright. Big refill.
At this point, he's plus 23 seconds over world record and has just over 10 minutes of gameplay left. Dungeon 3 has him doing some on-the-fly routing to get favorable drops on the item drop table, so he can replenish his bomb count, which doesn't end up paying off and costs him another 5 seconds, but luckily, a blue Octorok drops some bombs and the run continues on to Dungeon 7. Dungeon 7 contains the toughest combat in the run, which can be mitigated by getting the magic sword, as it does considerably more damage than the regular sword. But the route Lack uses cuts out getting a magical sword, as it would cost well over a minute of time to pick up, so with 8 hearts, Lack enters Dungeon 7. The first few rooms, Lack kills a couple of red Darknuts to try and pick up some bombs, as he has a manhandle to fight. But in the third room, he gets hit by a red bubble while trying to get another bomb to drop, which disables his sword and makes the fight more volatile due to his already low bomb count. The rest of the dungeon has a lot of darknet combat, which goes rather well despite the low bomb count. He gets some fairy drops, which allow him to play more aggressively and storms through the rest of the dungeon, making quick work of the Gleeok at the end.
Alright, let's go. We're ahead by like 3 seconds. 2, 1.
Lack ended this dungeon with 30 seconds of time to save, which puts him in the green for the first time in the run. All that's left in the run at this point is to pick up the silver arrows and kill Ganon. Getting the silver arrows is quite straightforward. The only difficult part is the room before you pick them up, as it's full of wizrobes that you must kill in order to proceed. Lack drops down to 2 hearts here, but picks up a heart from a wizrobe and proceeds to the next room. Getting the silver arrows puts the run into go mode, as you can kill Ganon now, but using up plus A to warp back to the start of the dungeon means that no matter your heart count, you'll have 3 from here to the end of the run. Lack is fortunate and has a fairy and some hearts drop off of the room with blue vires in it directly after the blue Lammola fight. From here, there are 2 Patras that stand in his path on his way to Ganon. Patras are a very difficult enemy because they have floating eyes that rotate around them, and all of the eyes must be killed before the Patra can be defeated. They have 2 main attacks, one where the eyes remain contracted around the Patra and expand to make a bigger circle periodically, and the other where the eyes take up an elliptical shape and spin around another axis. The first encounter is straightforward, with Lack taking 2 hearts of damage and getting no health drops, which makes the next encounter a lot more dangerous. The second Patra encounter has 2 turrets in the room with the Patra that deal a half heart of damage on each hit. Lack uses a strategy that locks the Patra's attack pattern to the contracted circle, which makes the fight a little safer. During the fight, he loses another heart and half of life, which means the Ganon fight will be especially volatile.
Hey, I've had 1.5 hearts this time.
For the Ganon fight, Ganon will teleport around the room while remaining invisible, which means you need to predict where he will be in order to hit him, and he starts at a random position once you enter the room. Lack takes a fireball early in the fight, which drops him to half a heart. Any more damage and the run dies while on world record pace, but then something spectacular happens.
Yo, a PB. Hey! What do you know? How about that? How about that? Have a gold world record.
Lack managed to stunlock Ganon on the next attack after taking damage from a fireball, which allows him to set up the kill and take the world record by just a single second, with a final time of 32:22. After second quest, Lack took the 80% record 5 days later to finalize the sweep of the leaderboards. It took him almost 4 years before he simultaneously held all of the records. With unwavering dedication and the determination to learn new routes for virtually every category, Lack's effort paid off, and he stood as the lone champion of the Zelda leaderboards. The leaderboard sweep wouldn't last forever, however. A runner named Saver took the second quest low percent record a week after Lack finished the sweep. Saver beat Lack's time by 2 minutes and 31 seconds, which goes to show that some of the times can be improved by optimization, which is partly how Lack was able to accumulate the final 5 records in quick succession during May of 2019. Saver currently holds 3 records out of 13 on the Zelda leaderboard, with Lack still retaining 10. Maybe a new Hero of Time has emerged to save Hyrule and collect all of the records, but for 1 week in 2019, the Hero of Time had a name, and it was Lack Attack 24. Thanks for watching.
It's over. What a choke in level 9, but we did it. Ah, it's over. It's over. Run 1-1-1-1. I told you that was this one. It was it. It was it. 1-1-1-1. The palindrome run. 1-1-1-1. Man,